The Grand Mansion's medical suite buzzed with tension as 12 specialists surrounded a dying 8-year-old boy. Machines blared warnings while the child's life ebbed away despite millions in cutting-edge equipment. Catherine Sinclair, Billionaire CEO, watched helplessly as her wealth and power proved worthless at this crucial moment. Through the chaos burst a man in a worn delivery uniform, drawn by the child's fading cries. Security moved to remove him, but he spoke with surprising authority. "Give me 30 seconds. If I'm wrong, do whatever you want." His hands moved with practiced precision over the boy. The room fell silent, as beneath his touch, a faint heartbeat returned. Catherine Sinclair commanded respect in boardrooms across America. Her technology empire, valued at $11 billion, had transformed her from ambitious entrepreneur to one of the country's most formidable business leaders. At 42, she possessed everything money could buy: estates spanning 3 states, political connections reaching Washington, a collection of luxury cars she rarely drove. But her true focus remained singular: her son, Ethan. The boy's father, a hedge fund manager whose ambition matched Catherine's own, had exited their lives years ago, remarrying and relocating to London. His monthly calls to Ethan grew increasingly perfunctory until they stopped altogether. Catherine never spoke of him, channeling her fierce protectiveness into creating a perfect world for her son. That perfection had shattered 7 months ago, when Ethan first collapsed during a school play. Since then, specialists from across the globe had cycled through the mansion's private medical suite, their diagnoses conflicting, their treatments ineffective. The vibrant boy who once dominated dinner conversations with endless questions now lay silent for days, his skin pale, his once bright blue eyes dulled by pain and medication. For all her achievements, Catherine had never felt so utterly powerless. Her resources, which had bulldozed obstacles throughout her career, proved useless against her son's mysterious illness. In her darkest moments, alone in her study with a glass of scotch, she confronted a terrifying truth. Her wealth couldn't save what mattered most. 15 miles away in a modest 2-bedroom apartment, Michael Donovan prepared dinner for his 7-year-old daughter, Emma. At 36, his weathered hands moved efficiently in the small kitchen, chopping vegetables for soup while helping Emma with her spelling homework. His rapid express delivery uniform hung by the door, ready for tomorrow's shift. 5 years earlier, Michael had watched cancer claim his wife Sarah in mere months, leaving him a widower with a toddler. The medical bills had forced them from their small house to this apartment, in a neighborhood where sirens served as nightly lullabies. Yet within these walls, Michael had created a sanctuary of stability and love. What no one in his current life knew was that Michael carried an unusual legacy. His grandmother, an immigrant who had blended old-world folk medicine with practical nursing skills, had recognized something special in him as a child. "You have the gift," she'd told him, guiding his small hands to feel the subtle energies of the human body. "Some can heal with touch. It's rare, but it runs in our blood." After Sarah's diagnosis, Michael had desperately immersed himself in his grandmother's teachings, spending nights studying her worn journal of remedies and techniques. Though he couldn't save his wife, the knowledge became his quiet mission, understanding the body's hidden language, the pressure points and energy pathways that modern medicine often overlooked. Each evening, after tucking Emma into bed, Michael would practice these techniques, sensing the subtle energies his grandmother had taught him to perceive. His delivery job brought him to mansions and penthouses across the city, where he remained invisible to the wealthy clients who barely glanced his way. Yet occasionally, when delivering packages to hospitals or nursing homes, he would notice symptoms others missed, quietly suggesting remedies that often brought relief. The worlds of Catherine Sinclair and Michael Donovan existed in parallel, separated by wealth, opportunity, and circumstance, until the night Michael's delivery route took him to the service entrance of Sinclair Mansion with a package of imported medications. As he passed the East Corridor, he felt an unmistakable pull, like a current drawing him toward distress. The child's fading life force called to him with a clarity that defied explanation. What happened next would alter both their lives irrevocably. The tension in the medical suite was suffocating as Michael approached Ethan's bed. The boy's skin had taken on a bluish tint. His lips parted in silent gasps. The doctors exchanged glances of defeat, already mentally composing condolences. "Step back," Michael instructed, his voice carrying a certainty that made even the chief physician pause. With movements born from countless hours studying his grandmother's techniques, he pressed his thumbs to specific points on Ethan's feet, then traced the meridians along his legs. "This is absurd," Dr. Reynolds, the head specialist, protested. "Who authorized this delivery person to touch the patient?" Catherine, desperate for any chance, raised her hand for silence. Michael reached into his pocket, producing a small vial of aromatic oil. He applied a drop beneath the boy's nose, then to pulse points on his wrists. "What is that substance?" Dr. Miller demanded, stepping forward. "This is highly irregular and potentially dangerous." Michael didn't answer. He placed one hand on Ethan's chest while gently turning the boy's head. "Breathe with me, buddy," he whispered. "Just like that. In and out." The monitors, which had been screaming with alarm, began registering changes. Ethan's oxygen levels crept upward. His heart rate stabilized. Not strong, but steady. Then came the Miracle 11 specialists, with advanced degrees couldn't achieve. The boy's eyelids fluttered open. Catherine stumbled forward, tears streaming unchecked. "Ethan? Baby, can you hear me?" "Mom," the boy whispered, barely audible. The buzzing stopped. The medical team converged, checking vitals with renewed urgency. Michael stepped back, allowing them space. No one knew quite what to make of what they'd witnessed: a child on the brink of death, pulled back by a stranger's hands. Dr. Reynolds turned to Michael, professional skepticism battling with the evidence before his eyes. "What exactly did you do? Those techniques aren't in any medical text I've studied." Michael shrugged slightly. "My grandmother was a healer in her village. She taught me that sometimes the body gets locked in patterns of distress. The right pressure points can reset the system." Catherine hadn't taken her eyes off her son, whose color was visibly improving. His breathing had deepened, his chest rising and falling in a rhythm that had seemed impossible minutes before. She finally looked up at Michael, her expression unreadable. "Everyone out," she commanded, her voice regaining its executive authority. "Except you," she added, pointing to Michael. "And Dr. Reynolds. The rest, wait in the hall." When only the four remained, she approached Michael, studying him with the intensity that had intimidated corporate rivals. "You just did what 11 specialists and millions in equipment couldn't do. Who are you, really?" "Michael Donovan. I deliver for Rapid Express. I was dropping off a shipment at your service entrance when I heard." He hesitated. "I can't explain it. I just knew I needed to help." Catherine's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Donovan, people don't just know how to revive children from near death. Especially not delivery drivers with no medical training." Michael met her gaze steadily. "I'm just a father who spent years learning how to help my daughter when she's sick. My grandmother taught me. That's all." Dr. Reynolds cleared his throat. "Mrs. Sinclair, while I can't explain what we witnessed, I should point out that Ethan's condition remains serious. This intervention may have temporarily stabilized him, but is he better than he was 10 minutes ago?" Catherine interrupted. "Well, yes, but then that's all that matters right now." She turned back to Michael. "Mr. Donovan, from this moment forward, you will not leave this estate." Michael blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me? Whatever you did saved my son when nothing else worked. I need you here in case his condition changes." Her tone softened slightly. "You'll be compensated generously, of course. I can't just stay here indefinitely. I have a daughter, a job. Your daughter can join you. As for your job," Catherine waved dismissively, "I'll handle that. One call to your company, and you'll be on paid leave." Michael felt the ground shifting beneath him. What had begun as an impulse was rapidly transforming into something beyond his control. "This isn't right. I'm not a doctor or a nurse. What happened just now was..." A miracle, Catherine finished. One I'm not willing to walk away from. Her voice hardened again. That of a woman, accustomed to getting her way. Mr. Donovan, I have the resources to make this very simple or very complicated for you. The choice is yours. Michael looked at Ethan, who had drifted into what appeared to be his first peaceful sleep in days. He thought of Emma, waiting at their neighbor's apartment, of their struggle to make rent each month, of the medical bills from Sarah's illness that still haunted him. I need to get my daughter, he said finally. Catherine nodded. I'll send my driver immediately. And I need to understand what you expect from me. I can't promise miracles on demand. What I expect, Catherine replied, is for you to do whatever it takes to keep my son alive. She moved to the bedside, gently brushing Ethan's hair from his forehead. Everything else is negotiable. As Michael watched this powerful woman tenderly touch her child, he recognized the universal language of a parent's fear. Beneath her commanding exterior beat a heart as vulnerable as his own. I'll help however I can, he said quietly. But I'm not your prisoner. Catherine looked up, something like respect flickering in her eyes. Not a prisoner, Mr. Donovan. A guest. A very important guest. The East Wing guest suite, assigned to Michael and Emma, seemed larger than their entire apartment. Ornate moldings framed ceilings that made Michael feel strangely exposed, while the marble bathroom featured gold fixtures that Emma approached with cautious wonderment. They'd arrived after midnight. Emma sleepy-eyed and confused, clutching her worn stuffed rabbit. Are we in a castle, Daddy? She'd whispered, her small hand gripping his tightly. Something like that, sweetheart, Michael had answered, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. Just for a little while. Now, 3 days later, the surreal quality hadn't diminished. Each morning, staff delivered breakfast on silver trays. Each afternoon, Michael spent hours with Ethan, applying techniques his grandmother had taught him: gentle pressure to specific meridian points, herbal compresses, and breathing exercises that seemed to ease the boy's symptoms. Catherine observed these sessions with intense scrutiny, positioned in a corner chair, her laptop balanced on her knees as she divided attention between corporate responsibilities and her son's treatment. The specialists continued their examinations, but with notably less authority, deferring to Michael's insights in ways that clearly made them uncomfortable. On the fourth evening, after Ethan had fallen asleep and Emma had been tucked into her new princess bed by a housekeeper, Catherine summoned Michael to her private study. The room, lined with leather-bound books and dominated by a mahogany desk, reflected its owner: elegant, imposing, intensely private. Sit, please, she instructed, gesturing to a chair while pouring amber liquid into crystal tumblers. She slid one toward him. 30-year-old Scotch. I think we both could use it. Michael accepted the glass but didn't drink. Catherine, she corrected, taking a measured sip. Catherine, he amended. I appreciate your hospitality, but I still don't understand what you expect from me. I'm not a miracle worker. She studied him over her glass. What happened to your wife? The abrupt change caught him off guard. Cancer. 5 years ago. And you couldn't save her with your methods? Michael felt the familiar tightness in his chest. No. By the time she was diagnosed, it was too advanced. Traditional treatments failed. My grandmother's remedies could only ease her pain, not cure her. Catherine nodded slowly. I lost my husband too, though in a different way. He decided our son and I weren't worth staying for. I'm sorry, Michael said genuinely. Don't be. William was a convenient mistake. He gave me Ethan. That's all that matters. She set down her glass with deliberate precision. Tell me about your grandmother. Michael took a small sip of scotch, letting the warmth spread before answering. She came from Northern Ireland. In her community, she was what they called a bone setter, part healer, part midwife. She could diagnose ailments by touch and smell. When modern medicine failed, people came to her. And she taught you everything? Not everything, Michael admitted. I was young when she lived with us. After Sarah got sick, I started researching, trying to fill gaps in my knowledge. Catherine leaned forward slightly. What do you think is wrong with my son? Michael hesitated. I'm not qualified to. I'm not asking for qualifications, she interrupted sharply. I'm asking for your honest assessment. 11 specialists have failed. You succeeded. That earns you the right to an opinion. Michael set down his glass. His symptoms don't align with a single condition. It's as if his body is fighting multiple battles. When I touch certain points, I feel resistance, blockage, as if something is interrupting his natural energy flow. You sound like those New Age healers I've wasted time consulting, Catherine said, disappointment edging her voice. I'm not talking about crystals or auras, Michael clarified. I'm talking about tangible physical responses. When I press here, he demonstrated on his own wrist. Ethan's breathing improves immediately. That's not mystical. It's a physical reaction. Catherine was silent, twirling her glass slowly. When Ethan was born, I promised him I would move heaven and earth to keep him safe. Now, I find myself helpless. She looked up, her carefully composed facade cracking. Do you know what that's like? To have all the resources in the world and still be powerless? Michael nodded. After Sarah was diagnosed, I worked 3 jobs for experimental treatments. I sold our car, our house. In the end, none of it mattered. Money doesn't change some outcomes. But knowledge might, Catherine said, a new intensity in her gaze. Your knowledge. I'm just trying to help Ethan day by day, Michael said carefully. That's all I can promise. The first signs of trouble emerged during the weekly staff meeting in Catherine's private conference room. Michael had been invited, or rather, instructed to attend, as the specialists provided their assessment of Ethan's condition. Dr. Reynolds delivered his report with barely concealed tension. While the child's symptoms have shown marginal improvement, I must express professional concerns about the continued use of unconventional methods, he stated, avoiding looking at Michael. We have no scientific validation for these treatments. Dr. Miller, a neurologist whose reputation for brilliance matched her arrogance, nodded emphatically. Furthermore, allowing an untrained individual to direct care sets a dangerous precedent. Mrs. Sinclair, with all due respect, medicine isn't a democratic process where the most popular approach wins. Catherine's expression remained impassive, but Michael noticed her knuckles whitening around her pen. I appreciate your concerns, doctors. However, the results speak for themselves. Ethan's energy has improved. His pain has decreased. He ate solid food yesterday for the first time in weeks. Temporary improvements, Dr. Reynolds countered. Possibly attributable to the medication adjustments we made last week. Michael, who had remained silent, spoke quietly. The medication adjustments that came after his condition began improving under my care. 6 pairs of eyes turned to him with expressions ranging from skepticism to outright hostility. Mr. Donovan. Doctor, Miller said. Her tone dripping condescension, delivering packages, is no doubt challenging, but it hardly qualifies you to contradict board-certified specialists with decades of training. Yet here we are. Michael replied evenly, discussing why a child who was dying a week ago can now sit up and play chess with my daughter. The uncomfortable silence was broken by Lawrence Townsend, Catherine's security chief, who had been standing by the door. Mrs. Sinclair, if I might speak candidly, he interjected, military bearing evident in his posture. There's also the matter of estate security. Having unauthorized personnel with unrestricted access presents significant risks. Catherine raised an eyebrow. Mr. Donovan and his daughter are my guests. Lawrence. Guests whose background we know precious little about, Townsend pressed. Standard protocol would require thorough vetting. Michael felt his face flush. I've submitted to your background checks. You've gone through my apartment, my bank records, even my daughter's school reports. What more do you want? Perhaps an explanation for how a man with no medical training coincidentally possesses the exact skills needed to treat a condition that has baffled the medical establishment, Townsend suggested, his tone deceptively mild. Before Michael could respond, the conference room door burst open. Emma stood there, breathless and frightened, her small frame dwarfed by the massive doorway. "Daddy, come quick. Ethan can't breathe." The room erupted into action. The medical team grabbed equipment while Catherine was already halfway through the door. Michael raced after them, heart pounding, following the sound of alarms that had become terrifyingly familiar. They found Ethan convulsing in his bed, lips blue, eyes rolled back. The monitors showed plummeting oxygen levels and an erratic heartbeat far worse than the previous crisis. "Get the crash cart," Dr. Reynolds shouted. Positioning himself at the bedside, Michael moved forward instinctively, but Townsend blocked his path. "Let the real doctors handle this," he said firmly. Catherine, her face ashen, looked between the medical team working frantically on her son and Michael, standing helplessly to the side. For a heartbeat, indecision paralyzed her. Then her son's body arched in another violent seizure, and she made her choice. "Let him through," she commanded Townsend, her voice breaking. "Now." Reluctantly, the security chief stepped aside. Michael rushed to Ethan, placing his hands on the boy's forehead and chest. He closed his eyes, focusing entirely on what his senses told him. The boy's pulse felt different, erratic, yes, but with a peculiar rhythm to the irregularity. His skin was cool, but not cold, and there was a faint, almost undetectable scent on his breath that triggered a memory. "This isn't the same as before," Michael said urgently. "Something's been introduced to his system." "Dr. Reynolds. When did he last receive medication?" The doctor looked up sharply. 30 minutes ago. Standard dose of his anticonvulsants." Michael shook his head. "Check the medication. This looks like toxic reaction, not disease progression." "That's absurd," Dr. Miller snapped. "The medications are carefully controlled." "Check them," Catherine ordered, her voice like steel. As Dr. Reynolds complied, Michael worked quickly, pressing specific points along Ethan's sternum while whispering reassurances. Emma had slipped into the room unnoticed, and now stood beside Catherine, instinctively taking the woman's trembling hand. "My daddy will help him," she said with absolute conviction. "He always knows what to do." The simple faith seemed to steady Catherine, who squeezed the little girl's hand gratefully. Minutes later, Dr. Reynolds returned, his face grim. "The anticonvulsant vial contains trace substances not consistent with the prescribed medication. I've sent it to the lab for immediate analysis." Catherine's expression hardened dangerously. "Are you telling me my son has been poisoned?" "We can't jump to conclusions," the doctor hedged. "Medication errors can occur." "Not in my house." Catherine cut him off. "Not with my son." Meanwhile, Michael had stabilized Ethan's breathing, using a technique for purging toxins, firm, rhythmic pressure to specific abdominal points, combined with elevating the feet. The boy's color was slowly returning, the monitors showing improvement. "He needs activated charcoal," Michael instructed, "and intravenous fluids to flush his system." The medical team implemented the protocol without debate. Within an hour, Ethan was resting comfortably, the immediate danger past. Catherine pulled Michael aside, her voice low and intense. "You said this was toxic. How did you know?" Michael hesitated. "My grandmother often treated children from farming communities exposed to chemicals. The pattern is distinctive: the seizures, the breath odor, the specific arrhythmia." "But Catherine, this doesn't look accidental. What are you suggesting?" she asked, though her eyes indicated she knew. "Your son isn't sick," Michael said quietly. "He's being poisoned, systematically, carefully, over time. That's why the doctors can't diagnose him. They're looking for a disease when there isn't one." Catherine's face went completely still, a predatory stillness revealing the steel beneath her polished exterior. "Who would dare?" she whispered. "Someone with regular access to his food, his medicine, his daily routine," Michael replied. "Someone trusted." As the implications sank in, Catherine turned to look at the assembled staff, the doctors, nurses, household employees moving efficiently around her son's bedside, people she had trusted with her most precious possession. "I want surveillance equipment installed immediately," she instructed Lawrence Townsend. "Every room, every corridor. No blind spots." "Already underway, Mrs. Sinclair," he replied smoothly. She turned back to Michael, studying him with renewed intensity. "Why are you really here, Mr. Donovan? Of all the delivery drivers in the city, why did you happen to be the one with the skills to save my son?" The question caught him off guard. "I told you I heard him crying out. From the service entrance on the other side of the mansion?" She pressed. "I can't explain it," Michael said honestly. "I just knew I needed to be there." For a long moment, Catherine seemed to be calculating, weighing possibilities. Then she nodded once. "Decision made. From now on, you taste everything before it goes to Ethan. You check every medication. You sleep in his room. No one touches my son without your approval." "No one." Michael glanced at Emma, watching quietly from a corner. "And my daughter?" "She needs me too." Catherine followed his gaze. "Your daughter will stay with us. She'll have tutors, protection, whatever she needs." Her voice softened slightly. "Ethan likes her. She's good for him." As if sensing the adult's attention, Emma looked up and offered a small, brave smile. Michael felt a surge of pride and pain. His little girl, adapting to circumstances no child should face, just as she had adapted to life without her mother. "We'll need to be careful," Michael warned. "Whoever is doing this will realize their method has been discovered. They might become more desperate, more dangerous." Catherine's eyes hardened. "Let them try. No one threatens my family and lives to tell about it." The quiet ferocity reminded Michael that beneath the veneer of civilized wealth lay a woman who had clawed her way to the top of a ruthless industry. Catherine Sinclair wasn't just a concerned mother, she was a formidable enemy to anyone who crossed her. The days that followed brought an uneasy calm to the Sinclair estate. With Michael overseeing every aspect of Ethan's care, the boy's health improved steadily. Color returned to his cheeks, and the haunted look that had shadowed his eyes began to fade. Most remarkably, he laughed a sound so unexpected that it brought Catherine running from her home office the first time she heard it. She found Ethan and Emma sprawled on the floor of his bedroom, surrounded by building blocks and action figures. Michael sat cross-legged beside them, demonstrating how to construct a miniature bridge. "It needs a troll," Emma was insisting seriously. "All proper bridges have trolls." "Do not," Ethan countered, giggling. "That's just in stories." "How do you know?" Emma challenged. "Have you checked under every bridge?" The simple childhood debate, so normal, so ordinary, brought unexpected tears to Catherine's eyes. How long had it been since her son had energy for such nonsense? Michael glanced up, catching her emotional reaction before she could mask it. He nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement of the milestone. Catherine composed herself quickly, unwilling to disturb the children's moment of normalcy. "Dinner in 30 minutes, she announced instead. "Emma, would you like to help Ethan change?" "Maria laid out clothes for both of you." "Yes, Mrs. Sinclair," Emma replied eagerly, taking her role as helper seriously. As the children disappeared into the adjoining dressing room, Catherine turned to Michael. The lab results came back. They found traces of digitalis extract from foxglove, highly toxic in the wrong dose. Michael's expression darkened. "That confirms our suspicions. Digitalis causes symptoms that mimic heart conditions. Administered slowly, it would produce exactly the kind of decline we've seen in Ethan. Whoever did this knows medicine," Catherine said, her voice tight with controlled rage. "And has consistent access to my son." Michael nodded grimly. "Have the security cameras shown anything?" "Nothing conclusive. Everyone's careful now that they know we're watching." She hesitated. "I've narrowed the suspect list to 5 people, the only ones with regular, unsupervised access to Ethan's food and medication." "The core medical team?" Catherine's mouth tightened. "Plus Lawrence Townsend and Margaret Wilson, my personal assistant." Michael raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Your security chief and assistant?" "They've been with you for years, which means they know exactly how to hurt me." Catherine replied coldly. "Trust is a luxury I can't afford right now." That evening, for the first time, they ate dinner as what might have appeared to an outsider as a family unit. The private dining room, usually set with Catherine at one end of the massive table and Ethan at the other, had been rearranged with the 4 of them clustered at one end. Michael carefully tasted each dish before allowing the children to eat, a precaution that had become routine. The conversation flowed naturally. Emma chattered about butterflies she'd spotted in the garden. Ethan described the science project he hoped to complete once he felt stronger. Catherine, to Michael's surprise, set aside her ever-present phone and engaged fully, asking questions and offering encouragement. "Daddy makes the best pancakes," Emma announced proudly as they discussed favorite foods. "He puts happy faces on them with bananas and berries." Ethan looked hopefully at Michael. "Could you make some for me sometime?" "Absolutely," Michael promised, "as soon as Dr. Reynolds clears you for regular food." Speaking of which, Catherine interjected, "Your latest blood work shows significant improvement." Dr. Miller was quite stunned. "She doesn't like Daddy very much," Emma observed matter-of-factly, causing the adults to exchange startled glances. "What makes you say that, sweetheart?" Michael asked carefully. Emma shrugged. "She looks at you the way my teacher, Mrs. Perkins, looks at Tommy when he puts glue in people's hair. Like she wants to send you to the principal's office." The unexpected assessment broke the tension, making both adults laugh despite themselves. The grand dining room of Sinclair Mansion had hosted presidents and captains of industry. Tonight, it held a more exclusive gathering. 5 suspects in an invisible circle of suspicion. Seated around a table glittering with crystal and silver, Dr. Reynolds sat stiffly, his bow tie slightly askew. Beside him, Dr. Miller maintained her air of superiority, though her fingers tapped restlessly against her water glass. Margaret Wilson, Catherine's assistant of 12 years, wore her customary bland smile, while Lawrence Townsend's military posture revealed nothing. Completing the group was Dr. James Chen, the estate's resident physician. Catherine presided at the head of the table, elegant in black silk. Michael stood slightly behind her, his position making his role clear: not quite staff, not quite an equal, but essential to the woman in charge. "Thank you all for joining me tonight," Catherine began, her voice pleasantly modulated. "I wanted to express my gratitude for your dedication to Ethan's care." Servants appeared silently, pouring wine and serving the first course. Michael noted the nearly imperceptible hesitation before Dr. Miller took her first sip. "Mrs. Sinclair," Dr. Reynolds spoke up, "while we appreciate the gesture, I'm curious about the timing. Ethan's condition, while improved, remains serious." Catherine smiled thinly. "That's precisely what I wish to discuss. The nature of my son's illness has troubled me deeply, particularly the latest lab results." A subtle tension rippled around the table. Margaret Wilson's placid expression didn't change, but her hand tightened visibly on her fork. "What specifically concerned you?" Dr. Chen asked, leaning forward. "The presence of digitalis in his system," Catherine replied smoothly. "A strange finding, wouldn't you agree? Particularly since it wasn't prescribed." The silence that followed was deafening. Michael watched each face carefully. Dr. Miller's lips thinned to a disapproving line. Dr. Reynolds paled slightly. Margaret Wilson remained impassive, while Townsend's eyes narrowed fractionally. "Digitalis is a powerful cardiac medication," Dr. Chen offered finally. "It would certainly explain some of Ethan's symptoms if he were receiving it inappropriately." "Indeed," Catherine agreed. "Which raises the question of how it entered his system." She took a deliberate sip of wine. "I've had the security footage analyzed. Every meal, every medication, every person who had access to my son. The threat hung unspoken but unmistakable. Someone was trapped and knew it." "Surely you don't suspect one of us?" Dr. Miller asked, indignation coloring her tone. "We've dedicated our careers to healing, not harm." "I suspect everyone," Catherine replied coolly. "When it comes to my son's safety, trust is a luxury I can't afford." As dessert was served an elaborate chocolate creation, Catherine delivered her final blow. "I've contacted the FBI," she announced casually. "Agent Harlow arrives tomorrow morning to begin a formal investigation into the attempted murder of my son." The reaction was immediate. Dr. Reynolds' spoon clattered against his plate. Dr. Miller drew in a sharp breath. Margaret Wilson froze mid-motion, while Lawrence Townsend's face hardened into stone. "Murder?" Dr. Chen repeated, his voice strained. Attempted murder, Catherine corrected calmly. And it's not an accusation, it's a fact supported by toxicology reports. She leaned forward. Whoever you are, whatever your motive, know this. You will not touch my son again. You will not escape justice. In the tense silence that followed, a crystal champagne flute shattered. Margaret Wilson had gripped her glass so tightly it broke, sending shards and liquid across the tablecloth. Blood welled from a cut on her palm, but she made no move to tend it. I think I should leave, she said quietly, her voice strangely flat. No one is leaving, Catherine replied, nodding to Michael, who moved to stand by the dining room's main entrance. Not until we understand each other perfectly. What happened next occurred with stunning swiftness. Lawrence Townsend lunged across the table toward Catherine. Dr. Miller screamed, the sudden shocking report of a gunshot. And then, Margaret Wilson standing, a small pistol steady in her bleeding hand, as Lawrence Townsend collapsed back into his chair, red blossoming across his white shirt. He was going to hurt you, Margaret said to Catherine, her voice eerily calm. I couldn't let that happen. Not again. Time seemed to expand and contract as security personnel flooded the room. Dr. Chen rushed to Townsend's side, assessing the wound while Dr. Reynolds frantically called for medical supplies. Dr. Chen rushed to Townsend's side. Miller remained frozen, shock etched across her features. Through it all, Catherine and Margaret remained locked in a strange tableau, staring at each other across the chaos. Why my son? Catherine asked, her voice barely audible. Why Ethan? Margaret's face softened with an emotion that might have been pity. It was never about Ethan, Catherine. It was about you. About making you understand what it means to lose everything. As security disarmed Margaret and led her away, the pieces began to fall into place. The long-serving assistant, always in the background, always overlooked, the perfect position from which to orchestrate a devastating revenge for some perceived wrong. Michael moved quickly to Catherine's side, steadying her as shock set in. The children, she whispered urgently. We need to check on them. Together they hurried to Ethan's suite, where Mrs. Chen had been instructed to keep the children secure. They found Ethan and Emma huddled together in the far corner, eyes wide with fear. We heard a loud bang, Emma said tremulously as Michael gathered her into his arms. Like in the movies when bad things happen. Is everyone okay? Ethan asked, reaching for his mother with a trust that broke Catherine's carefully maintained composure. She knelt beside him, gathering her son close. Everyone's safe now, she promised, meeting Michael's gaze over the children's heads. The danger is over. Spring arrived with breathtaking abundance of color across the Sinclair estate. Cherry trees burst into pink clouds along the main drive, while tulips created rivers of crimson and gold beneath the library windows. Within the mansion, an equally remarkable transformation had taken place. Ethan Sinclair, fully recovered from his ordeal, raced through the corridors with the boundless energy of a healthy 8-year-old. His laughter once so rare it startled. The staff now rang frequently through rooms that had known too much silence. He had returned to his studies with enthusiasm, his tutors reporting not just academic progress but newfound confidence. Emma Donovan had blossomed as well. Initially shy in the mansion's grandeur, she now navigated its spaces with comfortable familiarity. Her enrollment in the prestigious Westlake Academy had opened new horizons, art classes, horseback riding. Friendships with children who accepted her without question, despite her different background. Michael watched these changes with quiet satisfaction as he established his role within the household. Catherine had converted a wing of the mansion into a wellness center, where Michael could practice the healing techniques his grandmother had taught him. What had begun as care solely for Ethan expanded to include staff members and, eventually, selected patients from Catherine's network. Catherine herself had undergone perhaps the most subtle, yet profound transformation. The razor-sharp businesswoman remained efficient, authoritative, brilliant in the boardroom but at home. A new softness occasionally emerged. She spent more evenings with Ethan rather than working late. She joined family meals rather than eating alone in her study. On this particular afternoon, the children played chess on the terrace, while Michael tended the small medicinal herb garden he'd established nearby. Catherine approached, setting aside her ever-present tablet to watch the game. "Ethan's getting quite good," she observed, noting her son's strategic play. Emma taught him her secret opening move. Michael replied with a smile. "She's a natural strategist." They stood in comfortable silence, the spring breeze carrying the children's cheerful debate over chess rules. "I received the final report from the prosecutor today," Catherine said eventually. Margaret Wilson accepted a plea agreement. 20 years. No possibility of early parole. Michael nodded solemnly. The legal proceedings had revealed the full extent of Margaret's methodical poisoning campaign and her devastating motivation. "Does it bring you closure?" he asked. Catherine considered the question. "Not closure. Understanding, perhaps. Her son died, while our company followed proper protocols. In her mind, the system that should have protected him failed. So she targeted what mattered most to me. She watched Ethan move his knight across the board. I can understand her rage, if not her actions. That's more compassion than most would show," Michael noted. "I've had good teachers in compassion recently," Catherine replied, glancing at him meaningfully. Their relationship had evolved over the months, professional boundaries gradually softening into something neither had quite defined. They worked together seamlessly for the children's welfare. They shared meals and conversations that stretched late into the evening. Yet both carried wounds from their pasts that made them cautious. "The children want to have a picnic by the pond," Catherine said, changing the subject. "Would you join us? I've asked the kitchen to prepare something special." "I'd like that," Michael agreed, sensing there was more to the invitation than a casual meal. Later that afternoon, they gathered on a blanket spread beneath a weeping willow whose trailing branches created a private world by the estate's ornamental pond. The children alternated between eating and exploring, catching tadpoles in a glass jar and debating what they might become. Frogs, obviously. Ethan insisted with the authority of recent science lessons. "But what kind of frogs?" Emma countered. "There are thousands of species." As their debate carried them to the pond's edge for further investigation, Catherine turned to Michael, her expression unusually vulnerable. "I've been thinking about the future," she began carefully. "About what I want for Ethan. For myself." Michael waited, sensing the importance of whatever she was struggling to express. "Before you came into our lives, I thought I had everything figured out," she continued. "The perfect career, the perfect home, the best care money could buy for my son. But when all of that failed to keep him safe, when it was you, with your ordinary hands and extraordinary heart, who saved him," she paused. "It made me reconsider what really matters." Michael watched a dragonfly skimming the pond's surface, its iridescent wings catching the light. "And what did you decide matters most?" he asked quietly. "Family," Catherine answered simply. "Not the kind defined by bloodlines or legal documents, but the kind created through choice and commitment, the kind we've been building here, the four of us." She reached into her pocket and withdrew a small velvet box, placing it between them on the blanket. Michael looked at it, then at her, surprise evident in his expression. "Catherine, don't answer yet," she interrupted. "This isn't a traditional proposal. I'm not asking for romance or passion, though I won't pretend I don't feel something for you." She opened the box, revealing not a ring, but a small golden key. "This is the key to a cottage I've had built at the edge of the estate. It's yours, regardless of your answer, a place for you and Emma that belongs solely to you, independent of me. I want you to know you always have choices." Michael touched the key lightly, understanding the significance of the gesture. For a woman who controlled everything in her domain, offering true independence was the deepest expression of respect. "And what exactly are you asking?" he prompted gently. Catherine took a deep breath. "I'm asking if you would consider making this arrangement permanent. For the children's sake, primarily, but also," she faltered, then pushed forward, "also for ours. I've grown accustomed to your presence, your wisdom, your kindness." Michael looked toward the pond where Ethan and Emma crouched side by side, their heads bent together in shared discovery. In the months they'd lived at the mansion, the children had become inseparable brother and sister in all but blood. He thought of Emma's increased confidence, of opportunities she would never have had in their previous life. He thought of Ethan, who now looked to him for guidance. Then he thought of Catherine, brilliant, difficult, vulnerable Catherine, who had opened her fortress walls to admit a delivery driver and his daughter, who had learned to trust after devastating betrayal, who was now offering a future neither would have imagined possible on that desperate night when their paths first crossed. "I don't need a cottage," he said finally, picking up the key. "Though I appreciate the gesture more than you know." He closed the box and handed it back to her. "If we're going to do this, we do it as equals, not employer and employee, not benefactor and recipient, partners." Catherine's expression revealed surprise, then thoughtful consideration. "Partners," she repeated, testing the word. "I haven't had a true partner since. Well, perhaps ever." "That's my condition," Michael said firmly. "I won't live in your shadow or on your charity. Whatever we build together." A slow smile spread across Catherine's face. Not her public smile, polished and controlled, but something genuine and a little uncertain. "I think I'd like that. Learning to be partners." From the pond's edge came a triumphant shout as Ethan successfully caught a tiny frog. Emma's delighted laughter joined his, the sounds blending in the afternoon air. "Should we tell them?" Catherine asked, nodding toward the children. Michael considered the question. "Not yet. Let's take this one step at a time." He reached across the blanket, taking her hand in his. "We have plenty of time to get it right." As the sun began its descent, casting golden rays across the estate, the four figures remained by the pond, two children discovering the world together, two adults rediscovering hope. Whatever the future held, they would face it not as separate souls struggling alone, but as a family forged in crisis and sustained by choice. In the distance, the mansion stood as it always had, imposing, magnificent, a monument to wealth and power. But within its walls, something had fundamentally changed. Where once there had been emptiness disguised by opulence, there now existed the messier, more precious reality of genuine connection. Money hadn't saved Ethan Sinclair. Specialists couldn't diagnose him. Technology failed to protect him. In the end, it was the most basic human gifts that had made the difference: compassion, intuition, and the courage to reach across boundaries. As Michael helped Emma carefully return the frog to its home, he felt Catherine's gaze upon him. Turning, he found her watching them with an expression of wonder, as if seeing clearly for the first time, a truth that had been before her all along. That true healing comes not from power or control, but from the vulnerable, beautiful risk of opening one's heart to others. "Ready to head back?" he asked, extending his hand to help her up. She took it, her fingers intertwining with his. "Yes," she answered simply. "I'm ready." Hand in hand, they called to the children, who came running with stories of their discoveries. Together, the four of them walked toward home, their shadows merging into a single silhouette against the setting Sunday.